If you are just joining us, Donald Trump is headed back to the White House after clinching enough delegates to be elected president.
Fox 5 political analyst Stephen Goggin, associate professor of political science at San Diego State, is joining us this morning now to break it all down. Stephen, good morning. The day is here. The results now coming in. A lot of people waking up this morning, with questions of what happened. What do you think happened in this election?
Sure, so it's a great question. We knew it was going to be close, right? We knew kind of the election was going to turn on a knife's edge. And in particular, right, a number of factors contributed to kind of what we saw last night. What's remarkable is there was a relatively uniform swing. We saw maybe a 3-point swing towards Trump than we expected in kind of the Northeast, right, and the Midwest. A little bit larger in the Sun Belt here, but in particular, just how uniform that was, in particular across a number of voting blocks. In particular, we knew it would be close, but in particular, the polls missed like they had a little bit in 2020 and 2016. And part of the big question going into this is, were the polls going to miss like they did in 2022 or 2020? In 2022, they missed in the favor of Democrats, partly owing to the Dobbs decision on abortion that summer and arguably backlash to January 6th. But in particular, once again, we see Donald Trump kind of outperforming his polls by a normal polling miss, right? It's not as if they got it wildly wrong, but they got it pretty uniformly wrong in a number of, obviously, the key battleground states.
The polls are not, it's fun to look at, but we know that they make mistakes all the time. That's not a big deal. You mentioned that this was close. This wasn't close, though. Based on what the Electoral College turned out to be, so far it's 286 to 226. A couple of states still up for grabs at this point, doesn't matter. 286 to 226 is not close. 5 to 6 million votes in the popular vote is not close. 52 Republicans down the Senate control the Senate, not close. What is the statement voters made in this election that a lot of folks weren't seeing leading up to Election Day?
So it's the same thing we've seen in lots of other democracies, right? We've seen a pretty strong anti-incumbent backlash, right? Particularly post-COVID. We saw it in the UK, we've seen it elsewhere. And in particular, I think part of the story of this election is actually says very little about Trump, says very little about Biden or Harris even, right? Is that it's just a general malaise and dissatisfaction with the way things are, whether we pin it on inflation, right, or other concerns, right, that people may have. And in particular, this kind of malaise, right, can create a condition where people are just voting for the out party each time, right, arguably contributing, right, to Trump's loss in 2020 as well. I will say, to your point, right, and not particularly close, is there's still a number of ballots, particularly in California, to count, right, and will make the popular vote closer. And of course, right, the margins of 1-2% in a number of these swing states are larger kind of than we might have expected. But, a little bit different turnout. It's looking like, of course, we don't have all the ballots in, maybe 5 or 6 million fewer votes in 2020, possibly owing to, right, kind of a number of reforms to voting in 2020 given the pandemic to make it easier. But just again, kind of a similar story to 2016 in that a number of people just didn't show up, right? And that polling and all of this, right, our predictions are not just knowing whether people are liked or disliked, but whether people are actually going to show up and cast a ballot on Election Day or obviously through earlier mail voting.
Well, for the people who did cast their ballot, I want to turn to Congress. Republicans able to flip the Senate. I believe, if I'm not mistaken, they were able to flip about 5 seats. So where are we with that? And then also looking at the House, are they going to be able to do the same there?
Sure, so it's a great question. Going into this election, right, we knew years out that given only a third of the Senate seats are up each particular 2 years, that this was going to be a hard map for Democrats to retain control or kind of battle there. It's looking like it might be 52-48 or 53-47 when all is said and done and all shakes out. And in particular, that matters quite a bit given, right, the map for 2026 also is generally favorable towards Republicans 2 years out. And so it could give them the Senate for a number of years, which is obviously a big deal for appointments, right, both judicial appointments, right, but also for the cabinet and other positions. For the House, it looks close, right? A number of races that will be pivotal are in California, and given kind of the mail-in voting and kind of slower counting, maybe a little while before we know more there. But also, right, has huge implications for the presidency is, when you have unified government, you have the House and Senate on your side, is it creates a very, very different environment for what you're able to get done right through Congress than if you add, for example, a Democratic House sitting opposite the Trump as president.
I want to touch on that a little bit more. If the House turns red, you have the presidency, you have the Senate, you have the House, hypothetically speaking here. What impact will that have? You mentioned how it's much easier to get things done.
Sure.
What impact is that going to have on a Trump presidency the second time around if he has full control of everything? Because we've heard some plans, some ideas. Some people are like, well, is that really going to happen? Is that really true? What do you see playing out?
So I see really kind of two implications. One, obviously, is that if the Democrats have the House, right, they can conduct oversight, right, and they may not be able to fully rein in a number of executive actions that Trump might take, but they can at least, right, conduct investigations, right, expose them, and have kind of a more solid legal footing to do that, and particularly attract attention. I will also note, right, in the first couple years of Trump's last presidency, right, they had a Republican trifecta there, and were actually able to not get a lot done. Is they had a relatively slim majority. They got the Tax Cuts and Jobs Act done in 2017. They didn't get a full Obamacare repeal, right, even though they got the individual mandate repealed. And so they might be able to do some things, right, but it really changes the dynamic, right, for what can be done through Congress. Given, right, the talk of Project 2025 and other Republican plans to do things. A number of those are through executive action, which Trump, right, might do. But in particular, right, a lot of those rely on Congress to act. And so a Democratic House sitting opposite would likely put some brakes, right, on many of those plans.
Based on what happened, I remember in 2016, everybody thought Hillary had won, and then the shock happened, and the Democratic Party had to, like, an urgent huddle. It's like, oh my God, what happened? What did we do wrong? We're out of touch with certain people. We're not into. What happens now to the Democratic Party? What happens in that huddle today?
It's a really great question, and one that's really really important about this particular election is obviously elections are a coarse instrument of control, as we don't know why we won or lost, and parties, whenever they lose, right, sit and start blaming each other, right, or thinking about what is to blame and how you go forward. And in particular, there's a real concern given kind of the emphasis on a number of popular Democratic policies, whether things that they were trying to deliver, student loan forgiveness, many others, that in fact, right, they realized given this conservative shift that actually doing many of the things, right, that were actually pretty widely popular despite the election results is actually maybe shifted to be a bit more conservative on a number of priorities where actually public opinion is on their side. But after any election, right, what you take away from it is really hard because, you know, voters don't get to attach a note about why they voted the way they did on their ballot. Is and different people will read in what they want, right, to this, and it'll be interesting to see how it shakes out among the Democratic establishment.
And then the questioning this or that already happening, and all the pundits last night. Should Joe Biden have been pushed aside? Should Josh Shapiro have been the one put up for the? We'll talk more about this throughout the morning. Stephen Goggin, professor, thank you.
Thank you.
you.
We'll chat more a little bit later.